welcome back in, everyone, to another episode of the Cherry Heat Check and New Mexico Lobos basketball podcast. I am Ricky Thompson, a two-time graduate of the University of New Mexico, and I am jacked up today after the Lobos defeat VCU on the road to give New Mexico their first true road win in the Eastern Time Zone since the 2012-13 season versus Cincinnati. It was also UNM's first top 50 KenPom non-conference road win since 2022-23 versus St. Mary's. And freshman sensation Jake Hall becomes just the fourth player to have 4 games over 20 points as a freshman, joining other greats, great freshmen such as Kenny Thomas, Charles Smith, and Phil Smith to reach the 20-point mark 4 times. I'll be digging in to what made the Lobos get out of there with a win, how phenomenal Jake Hall has been shooting the ball this season, how he's on track to potentially tie the season record for most three-pointers made in a season for a New Mexico Lobo player, that being held by Anthony Mathis. And we'll also look forward to the next game at home for the Lobos against a 5-5 Florida Gulf Coast team that will be coming in next Sunday. So thank you to all the listeners, and let's get into it. So the Lobos go into Richmond, Virginia, to the Siegel Center, probably a 4 to 5 hour flight from Albuquerque, on the road. Sold out crowd there in Richmond. It was buzzing. VCU coming off a couple of wins, had not really beat a stronger opponent, this being an important game for VCU as well. Had a March Madness feeling to it from watching it and listening to parts of it on the radio with Robert Portnoy and Hunter Green as well. So just a great environment there. You could tell the Lobos were ready for it, even though they had their struggles in the first half, rebounding the ball and stopping VCU on defense. But just a great atmosphere there. But as I mentioned, that first half for the Lobos, only getting to the foul line 8 times. And as I mentioned in the previous episode, I thought the foul line would be a deciding factor because VCU, while they shoot a lot of foul shots, only came in shooting about 70% at the stripe. In that first half, though, VCU goes 14 of 15 at the line, out rebounds New Mexico by 5 on the offensive glass. Yet the turnover margin was about even at 5 turnovers for UNM, 4 for VCU as they went into the half, the Lobos trailing by 5. But in that first half, the Rams came out with an early 8-0 run to get a 13-6 lead. The Lobos answered back with 6 straight to cut it to 13-12. And the Lobos used a late run of 7-0 to close it to be 40-38 with a minute 20 left before the Rams took a 46-41 lead into the break. And the integral part of that offense in the first half was Jake Hall having 14 of his 24 in the first half. And when the Lobos came out in the second half, it sounds like Mr. Luke Haupt gave them some type of speech in the locker room that had some colorful language in it. That really got him going. Lobos came out in the second half, opened with a 9-1 run to take a 50-47 lead at the 18:35 mark and push that advantage out to 55-50 with 17:30 left. And VCU really looking out of sorts early in the second half, but came back with their own 6-0 run to take a 56-55 lead. Then the teams really exchanged blows for a couple minutes before UNM went on a monster 14-0 run where VCU did not score a bucket for only over 5 minutes. They turning the ball over a couple times, getting bad shots, Lobos turning defense or turnovers into offense on the other end. But as soon as the Lobos looked like they might have had control of this game, with that double-digit lead or close to double-digit lead, 9-point lead, VCU goes on a 10-0 run themselves and tied the game with only 4 minutes left. none other than Jake Hall comes back in the game, knocks down a triple with 2:30 left in the game, and VCU was really out of sorts for the remainder of the game, it seemed. They could not get good looks at the basket, turnovers down the stretch, and the same could kind of be said for New Mexico, as with about 8.4 seconds left, the Lobos were up 80 to 78. VCU had the ball. They proceeded to turn it over. New Mexico had free throws on the other end. They missed the front end of a one-on-one. VCU comes down again and turns it over. And then we get to the point in the game where Chris Howell is inbounding the ball to Dayton Albury on the baseline with still 8 seconds left. Howell, or around maybe less than 8 seconds at that point, Howell decides to pass it in the corner to Albury, who's heavily pressured. It goes off Albury's hands, out of bounds, again giving VCU another opportunity to tie or take the lead. They decide to go to Djokovic. Bojan gives Djokovic the body, forcing Djokovic of VCU to put up an off-balance shot. Bojan corralled the rebound, and the rest was really history, as Bojan made one of the two free throws, and VCU had a final heave at the end. But it was not enough for Phil Martelli and the Rams, as they go down in a game they were expected to win, favored by 9 to 10 points in all sports books. And the Lobos, again, just coming together. Can't say enough about the bench play, and I'll dig in to that now. Again, the final stats for the Lobos: only shooting 18 three-pointers, which ties their season low on the year, and that has really been the key to the Rams defense all year, not giving up a lot of threes, but to the Lobos' credit, making 44% of those looks. Jake Hall making 5 of those 8. Lobos fantastic at the stripe, going 19 of 22 at the free throw line. VCU also finishing over 80%, going 23 of 28 at the three-point line. And credit the Lobos for changing their strategy in the second half to limit VCU on the offensive glass, even though they did give up 17 offensive rebounds, which is insane, to the Rams. What Coach Eric Olin mentioned to Jeff Grammer in the interview after the game is more than just thinking about it as a rebounding thing. It's really about the defense the Lobos were playing, having to play help side and bringing 2 men on the ball. To have 2 men defending the ball takes another man out of rebounding position. So they really talked about at halftime playing better defense so the help side doesn't have to come to the ball defender, thus leaving people out of position. Bojan did a better job in the second half, but he has really been a one-man show on the glass so far this year. Lobos and Rams both finishing with 11 assists and similar turnover numbers, 14 turnovers total for the Lobos and 12 for the Rams, and both getting 11 points off of those turnovers. As we look at the individual stats, Tomislav Bojan probably with one of his lower minute totals of the season, only playing 22 minutes, but had 11 points on 5 field goals, only 3 rebounds. Pretty surprising for Bojan, but he played great defense down the stretch and made that free throw to kind of seal the game there at the end. Antonio Chol, quiet night offensively for him, only 5 points. He came up with a key block down the stretch. I believe he is the leading block man for the Lobos thus far. Dayton Albury, leader of the Lobos, 14 points for him. He's played very well the last 2 games, going back to the Santa Clara game. His end of decision making at the end of drives has been much better these last 2 games, finishing at the rim and kicking it out for more catchable passes for his teammates. So really like the trajectory Albury has right now, playing some of his best basketball of the season. Chris Howell, 6 points for him, 6 of 6 important ones at the line. And he really took a hard foul in the second half, where a VCU player came down on his back, credit him for being tough and knocking down the free throws after getting absolutely creamed. And the announcers on the call, for some reason, did not think that was a foul. I'll talk a little bit more just about what I thought about the announcers later, as they were not New Mexico fans' cup of tea last night. Coming off the bench for the Lobos, Uriah Tenet, the freshman, 8 points for him, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. Very good, point of attack defender right now for the Lobos, making it tough on opposing guards at the top to get into their offense. And then for offense, for himself, he really plays well off of that pivot foot, using a series of head fakes to get shots up, and then down the stretch using his body to draw a big foul as he went to that strong left hand. So awesome game for Tenet. And JT Rock tying his minute total for the season, I believe, at 18 minutes, or maybe his high. 7 points for him, 3 of 3 from the field. JT Rock has not missed a shot in the last 2 games, going perfect from the field versus Santa Clara and VCU. 4 rebounds, 2 big blocks, a huge block in the final 3 minutes there, where he actually got some time under 5 minutes to come in for Bouillon before Bouillon came back in around 2-minute mark. So critical minutes for JT Rock. As I've mentioned the past few episodes, you see him getting more comfortable knowing the shots he should take and where he should be. And then just his attitude on the court. He's always a positive influence for his teammates, whether he's on the bench or in the game, clapping, getting guys together, and showing that positive energy. They even had to hold him back at one point from coming off the bench and helping one of his teammates up who had fallen down. Of course, we know you can't come off the bench at any time, or that would be a technical. But that's just the type of guy he is, wants to be there for his teammates, now performing just as well himself and not just acting as a cheerleader out there. So great to see. Luke Hop, 20 minutes for him as well. Can't say enough about his leadership, control, whatever speech he gave at halftime to pump these guys up. Also added 6 points and 7 rebounds for Hop off the bench. Fantastic game for one of their vocal leaders as well. And quickly looking at the VCU side of the box, Lazar Djokovic only finishing 4 of 12 from the field. Like I mentioned, the defense of the Lobos post players, fantastic in this one, making most shots tough for Djokovic down low. Barry Evans for the Rams was fantastic in the first half with a series of dunks, rebounds. He was a little quieter in the second half. Nick Lewis, the freshman for the Rams, finished with 14 points. Very impressive young guard, but for some reason, they did not get it in the guard's hands the last few possessions. They opted to go to Djokovic, which ended in a turnover and then probably a shot early in the shot clock. That final shot he shot was probably not the exact look they wanted. So interesting that they did not put the ball in one of these guards' hands, whether it be Brandon Jennings or Tracy, as they were all having fairly good games, even though neither of those gentlemen ended up making a three-pointer. And speaking of three-pointers, the Lobos forcing VCU into 27% shooting from deep, 7 and 26 in total there. But the 2 starting guards for the Lobos, both with huge games. As I mentioned, Dayton Albury, 14 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, but the star of the show, freshman from the San Diego area, Jake Hall, who's been starting all season, 24 points for him in this one, tying his season high, 1 assist, 1 rebound, and 3 steals. And you can't say enough about how mentally tough Jake Hall must be, because he, just coming off one of his worst games versus Santa Clara, where he was hitting the side of the backboard with the basketball in his shots, walks into this game feeling it, never let his confidence waver, and just let it fly from 3, going 5 of 7 from deep. And he talked about after the game how getting in, he had 4 fouls with about 13 minutes left in that game. how that last foul really was kind of garbage, and I think I would agree. But just hanging in there, keeping his head in the game. Coming when he came back in the game later, he got that pass from Tanet after Tanet dropped it off his foot, knocked down another big three. Hall did. So can't say enough about him and just how fantastic he has been as a freshman. And when we look at J. Cole shooting on the year, an incredible almost 44% from deep, making 31 three-pointers already. He is on track to make over three three-pointers per game. And if he stays on track in the rest of these games and you add in a Mountain West tournament game, which the Lobos will get for sure at least one of those, he is on track to be about one three-pointer behind Anthony Mathis, who finished with 106 in a total season in 2018-19, giving him the all-time mark for total threes in a single season. Kevin Henry had 102 in 98-99, and Kevin Henry was a bomber. Really enjoyed him. Ramon Martinez had 99 in the season, and Clayton Shields had two fantastic shooting seasons. One of my favorite Lobos of all time, having two seasons where he knocked down over 93s a game. So Jake Hall, set to join these great Lobo shooters, has a chance to be the all-time record holder in three-pointers hit in a single season for New Mexico. Looking at the Florida Gulf Coast roster and coach here, Patrick Chambers is the head coach coming back for his fourth season. They returned 41% of the minutes played from last year's team and 33% of the scoring from last year's team. They did lose one of their key players in Jevin Muniz to the transfer portal. He is now at Colorado State, so the Lobos will see him down the road. And of course, this Florida Gulf Coast And of course, this Florida Gulf Coast team with the Cinderella run in the 2013 NCAA tournament, a 15 seed reaching the Sweet 16, is what this school is really remembered for. They have reached the NCAA tournament two times since then. This year, they're led by J.R. Conenzi, a transfer from Notre Dame who's actually from South Bend, Indiana. He's coming in averaging 17 points a game this year in his newfound opportunity for the Eagles. He's a 6'6" guard, and look for him to be the leader of the pack on offense for the Eagles. Looking across here, another guard, Jordan Ellerby, 6'4" guard, returner for the Eagles. He comes in averaging 15 points a game, 4 rebounds, shooting 88% at the free throw line and 39% from the three-point line as well. He would also be joined in the backcourt by Ramir Barno. He's a 6-foot returning guard who comes in averaging over 15 points a game, 3 rebounds, and he's really what gets the offense going, averaging 6 assists per game for Barno. Down low, Eagles will have Isaiah Malone, a 6'8" forward, averaging 8 points a game and 5 rebounds. And Michael Dew, who's really a undersized forward at 6'5", but he is a leading rebounder, I believe, or the second leading rebounder, coming in with 5 rebounds a game and 8 points so far this season. Coming off the bench, you can expect Rory Stort. He's a 6'8" guard who's averaging 7 points a game and 3 rebounds, and Darren Williams, a 6'4" guard, coming off the bench as well, averaging 6 points and 1 rebound for Florida Gulf Coast. Looking at the prediction for how the Lobos should be favored in this one, KenPom has this as a 13-point win for UNM, 85-72. And as mentioned on the previous episode, whatever KenPom is usually predicting, the Vegas books will have set the line around that. So look for UNM to be 12 to 13-point favorites. And as I mentioned in the last one correctly, I expect Lobos to cover this spread, whatever it is, against Florida Gulf Coast as well. and I will wrap with a few final thoughts here on just where the Lobos are at and the growth that I'm seeing so far. Coach Olin right now really pressing all the right buttons, making substitutions that make sense down the stretch of this VCU game, understanding guys' roles, making offense for defense substitutions, playing JT Rock extended minutes as he was ever impactful in this game, and really now feeding the hot hand when he sees it. Previous game, J. Call did not have it going. They looked at other options and it worked against Santa Clara. This game, Hall feeling it early. They continued to feed the beast as Bullion was not as impactful down low in this one. So this team's chemistry really coming together. You can see Dayton Albury finding his footing as well, figuratively and literally, as he's not falling on the ground as much, finishing shots. And as I mentioned, the passes he's kicking out are now more catchable for these shooters. And this rotation of Tannett, Albury, and Hall at that guard position is just so fun to watch as they all play off each other very well. And they're kind of interchangeable, even though they have different skill sets. And then looking at the leadership of Hal and Hopt, although it's not my favorite thing when they dribble down to the baseline and put their head down and make a late decision, their leadership among rebounding, passing, and other things has been huge. And of course, can't go too far without mentioning Antonio Chol not playing too hot in this one as well. I think he's the fifth leading scorer on the team right now, but his defense has been impactful, again, leading the Lobos in block shots so far this year. And I think if New Mexico has found who their top 8 or 9 guys are, with Kevin Patton possibly getting a handful of minutes every game, got pulled early in this one for not shooting the ball and turning it over. And Coach Olin was really hot at him. But I think if the Lobos play 8 or 9 guys, and this is an 8 or 9 we see, I think we'll see this chemistry only continue to fly high as we are only about a week away from conference play here. Lobos will play their first conference game versus San Jose State on December 20th at home. San Jose State sitting right now at 5-5, and I think the overall performance in non-conference for the Lobos is one that maybe many didn't expect after losing to New Mexico State and then not looking good at all versus Nebraska, a Nebraska team that is still undefeated, I think at 10-0 right now, and New Mexico actually looking like one of their better wins. From that point on, the Lobos played much better against Mississippi State, came home to win a trio of games, and then went back on the road here to VCU to really put it all together and play a game where they were not allowed to shoot a ton of threes, and they still figured out a way. So impressive to see this team be able to win in a multitude of ways with different guys contributing and seeing players continue to elevate their games. A final comment just on the announcers that ESPN Plus had on the game last night. I believe it was Sean Robinson and Coach Ed Nixon, who are the home broadcasters for VCU. There's a lot of complaining about the two on Twitter as, let's just say, indirectly rooting for VCU throughout the game. So I was listening to this on the radio as I was driving home, thank God. So I just want to give a shout out to the Lobos radio guys, and they also do TV as well. None other than Robert Portnoy and Hunter Green. They do a fantastic job, stay impartial. And even when the Lobos were making some electric plays, Portnoy did not overreact and stayed neutral throughout the game. And I love Hunter Green really giving his bits and pieces in there and getting angry when the Lobos don't do things. Hunter Green being a great Lobo, of course, himself, someone I played a lot of pickup basketball with at River Point Sports and Wellness when I was younger. Just an absolute gentleman, knows a lot about the game, and just thankful that we get to listen to these two guys when you hear some of the other commentary that's going out there over the broadcast. It can be tough. So again, thank you to those two guys. That will wrap up the show there. Thank you, everyone, for checking in with the Cherry Heat Check. Thank you for everyone subscribing on YouTube, listening on Spotify and Apple, chatting with me on Twitter. I will have a wrap up of the Florida Gulf Coast game. Hope everyone has a fantastic weekend out there.